Alright, you guys, what's up? We're here to do a new tier list. So this one's a little more in a fun way. We're doing kind of like a crossover. Not our first crossover since we did a Hogwarts Houses one, but this one is a Twisted-Wonderland slash Genshin Impact crossover tier list. So we're gonna sort each of the dorms members into a specific element of vision. We change the colors and we put them in order from how the nations were released. So we have Animo for Mondstadt, Geo for Liyue, Electro for Inazuma, Dendro for Sumeru, Hydro for Fontaine, Pyro for Natlan, and Cryo for Snezhnaya. And we moved all the images just in order from like house member, and typically it's the order I kind of list things as. So it's House Warden, followed by Vice House Warden, senior members, then like lower years, freshmen. So it all kind of goes that general direction as we go across from left to right, going from heartslabyul, savanaclaw, octavanel, scarabia, pomefiore, ignihide, and ending off with diasomnia. Riddle, the most we see him use outside of his signature spell is Pyro. Is fire magic a lot of the time, so we'll put him in Pyro. Trey. I feel like Dendro or Animo is probably his best thing. Probably Dendro, I think, would be good for Cater, or for Trey, since there's... I use most of these with cooking elements, so they're all... He could fit into anyone just since like cooking is his main thing, but I feel like Dendro or Animo most likely, I feel, are kind of like Cater's, or goddamn, Trey's best fitting visions. Cater, I feel, is either Animo or potentially Electro, but I think Animo is where we'll go here. Ace, probably Pyro. Deuce, either Electro or Pyro. We'll go with, I feel, Pyro. Leona, for obvious reasons, his signature spell makes dust storms basically, so he's Geo by default. Rugi, if he would choose a vision, he's most likely Geo, but I feel like he could work within either Dendro or Animo maybe, but I think Geo is where it's gonna be at for Rugi. Jack, it's a bit of a cheap option just to put all the savanaclaw boys into Geo, but I feel like that's his best one. Outside of that, I feel like Jack could be... He does like his cactus, so potentially Dendro. It's Dendro or Geo for sure. We might switch him out, but for now we'll put him into Dendro alongside Trey. Azul. The obvious reasons would imply putting Octavanel in Hydro, but he is also all about contracts, and Zhongli is seen as the god of contracts, so that could work within his favor for Geo as well. But I think for now we'll put him into Hydro. Outside of the obvious Octavanel aspect for putting Jade into Hydro, he could go into Dendro because he's the Mountain Lovers Club and all that, so he does have that. But if I remember right, his I always mix the names of the spells, but I believe Jade is Shock the Heart, Because there's one that's shock and the other one is bind the heart. One of the two. But I feel like for the purpose of shock the heart, if it is truly Jade, we'll go with Electro just for the name, outside of the obvious implication of Hydro. Floyd. He's definitely free-spirited a lot of the time, so that could imply Animo. The obvious Hydro Vision aspect being eliminated. Cryo, no. Not Pyro. Potentially Electro, but I feel like Animo is kind of more his thing outside of Hydro. Kalim's signature spell is called Oasis Maker, so for obvious reasons he would be Hydro. If you take him out of that, the Scalding Sands is basically like a desert thing, so that could imply Geo. Kalim, his thing is Snake Charmer, so it has to do with kind of like manipulation. That could be Hydro or Electro. Outside of the obvious Scalding Sands element thing, one of his big things is kind of like wishing for freedom, so that could imply towards Animo as well. Cryo, I don't know. No, I don't think he fits Cryo quite there fully. I feel like he could be Dendro. He doesn't like bugs, so that kind of also potentially eliminates Dendro. He's either Animo, Geo, or Dendro, I think. We'll put him into Electro, I think, for now. We'll potentially switch him out into Animo as we revisit the list at the end, and then just kind of go back on anything we might swap out into a different category. Vil. Ooh, okay. He's very rigid. It's kind of not necessarily saying in a bad way. I just mean in the sense of like his thing is very much more of a like strict, going about it in a specific way. He tries to do it for the best. Electro could work. Hydro could work. He is very much but at that point we're also including the aspects of the nations themselves rather than just the element, and I don't fully recall all the different kind of reasons they give for why certain visions manifest, because some have to do with like protecting someone, some have to do with stuff like that. So there's like different ones. We probably should have read up on this just a little bit more, but screw it. So for now we're just going based off vibes, their unique spells, somewhat aesthetics, and just who they tend to be as a person. But so for this, for now, I think we'll put Vil into potentially, no, yeah, I could see potentially Cryo. Rook would be, I feel, Animo, Electro, Dendro, or Hydro. Based off this, he does give a little bit of official vibe. I kind of like him, envisioning him as like official type character. So for that reason, we'll put him in Electro. Apple's signature spell has to do basically with like Sleeping Beauty's coffin. So for that reason, we'll put him into Cryo, since it's like preservation and stuff like that. So we'll put him in Cryo for now. For obvious reasons, the Hades and Hell imagery, Edea would be a Pyro. Though depending on how you choose to consider imagery of Hell, there is the frozen abyss of Hell within like the 9 circles of Hell, so that could be Cryo. But I feel like for the obvious reasons, he could be a Pyro. He's all about technology, so that could be Electro as well if we're going just based off the imagery. It's Pyro or Electro, I feel, but I think Pyro definitely fits him more. Ortho is basically the Raiden Shogun character here, so I feel like Electro kind of fits his thing. Or he could be Scaramouche, so it could be Animo, but I feel like Electro fits him. Malleus, ooh, okay. Dragons, depending on your interpretation, could theoretically breathe each of these different elements as their attack. A lot of his thing is like thunder-based magic, since he's kind of based off Maleficent's attacks. A lot of the time we see him with either fire or thunder, so I feel like Electro probably puts him there. Lilia, most likely Animo, but I could see a Hydro potential to him. I think we'll shift them over to Animo for now. Silver, a lot of animal stuff, so that could go towards Dendro. Potentially Cryo because of the sleeping element, so he could be Cryo. But I feel like Dendro might fit him a little bit more, the whole wilderness aspect of his Sleeping Beauty adjacentness. And for the obvious reason, his unique spell, I feel like Sebek would go to Electro. Okay, so we have the basic breakdown for now. So in Animo, we have Cater, Floyd, and Lilia. Geo has Leona and Rugi. Electro has Jade, Jamil, Rook, Edea, Malleus, and Sebek. Dendro has Trey, Jack, and Silver. Hydro has Azul and Kaleem. Pyro has Riddle, Ace, Deuce, and Edea. Cryo has Vil and Apple. Let's see. Cryo, I think, should stay where it's at. I don't think anyone would need to be swapped over to Cryo. As far as swapping someone to Pyro, potentially Jamil or Rook, but I feel like those they work a little bit best where they are. Rook could go into Hydro because it's kind of like a Hydro, not necessarily just the Genshin visions, but water is seen as more of a fluid thing, and that is definitely kind of a lot more of Lilia's and Rook's personality, so they could potentially go into Hydro, but I think no one would be swapped into Hydro or swapped out of. The only one I would potentially swap out of Hydro would be Azul because of his contract-based thing, so that could potentially take him to Geo just because of Zhongli's domain over Geo being the god of contract, so that could work there as well. But I think for the obvious reasons of him being the House Warden of the Water one, it would make sense to keep him in Hydro, and then Kaleem's literal signature magic spell is called Oasis Maker, so that's water-based. Dendro, you could potentially swap Rugi into that. Maybe swapping Rook into Dendro could play well as also. No, I think Dendro stays how it is. Electro, Shock the Heart, I'm pretty sure it's Jade's spell, so just based off that alone, Electro. Ortho, because he's basically just, the Raiden Shogun or Scaramouche, so he's like a puppet technomantic thing, so that could work in his favor being Electro. Sebek is there because of his lightning spell, and more often than not we tend to see Malleus with either fire or thunder, so I feel like Electro works for him too. Rugi would also go in line with the nation that developed Mora, which is the currency of Teyvat. So him being in Geo works, and Leona's signature spell is basically like dust tornadoes. Everything collapses into sand and dust. So Geo works for him. And the freewheeling, very freedom-based characters of like kind of just being, whether it's for the sake of fun or just their own kind of self-interest of like their own freedom or just playfulness of their character, I feel like them staying in Animo is probably good. The only one that could potentially swap into Animo, I think, could be Kaleem or potentially Ace. But no. I think I'm overall satisfied with where we put them in. So one final time to round out the Genshin Impact Visions and Twisted-Wonderland characters here. So in Animo we have our Card Soldier of Diamonds, Cater. You have Floyd and Lilia. In Geo we have Leona and Rugi. Electro sees Jade, Jamil, Rook, Ortho, Malleus, and Sebek. Dendro sees Trey, Jack, and Silver. Hydro sees Azul and Kaleem. Pyro sees Riddle, Ace, Deuce, and Edia. And Cryo sees Vil and Apple. I think we are kind of good where this one is. So we'll keep trying bit by bit when it comes to these tier lists, trying to put them out somewhat intermittently with having a break in the schedule as far as videos that we have to put out. So we'll try and go bit by bit through more of these. But for now, I think we are good on this one. So as always, thank you guys so much for joining. Feel free to share and like the videos, subscribe to the channels, all that good shit. Truly helps out and is appreciated. And feel free to chime in here. Where do you think I potentially either made a mistake or just kind of overlooked some things with their signature spells and stuff? Just because since we, outside of not remembering the name of all their signature spells, we just went off character vibes and aesthetics as well, since I don't quite remember some of the ideas that are kind of, I don't say prerequisites, but kind of the aspects of character and personality that is taken into account when characters get visions in Genshin. So if you guys might think we need to do a kind of more lore established one for Genshin with how their visions are taken into account for, we'll do that as well later on. But this is just kind of a vibe / character based one rather than a true kind of vision based one. But anyway, that's gonna be it for this one, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. We'll catch you on the next one. Signing off. Peace out.